We're now into my favourite time of year for carp fishing. The environment's starting to change, the leaves are turning on the tree, the water itself's starting to change. But the main thing is the carp are on the feed, they're getting to their best weights and they're looking absolutely stunning. So, as I said, the environment's starting to change, so you have to take that into consideration because the clarity of the water will obviously change, become much clearer. Weed starts to die back, so there's lots of things to obviously put into those equations for fishing. I'm going to give you some of my tips for autumn fishing and hopefully try and get you a few more carp on the bank. With the water clarity becoming much clearer, concealment of your main line becomes a much more important factor in your fishing. My normal go-to at this time of year would be for transcarky fluorocarbon. It sinks like a stone, and even up in the water it's virtually invisible. So with the water clarity being as it is, it's absolutely perfect, but it does have one or two drawbacks. And one of those is currently happening in the angling situation I've got here, which is extensive weed beds going out 30 odd yards or more into the lake. So I have to look at other options. So in this situation I'll go with a normal mono, Exocet being my choice, a short leader of either lead core or unleaded submerged leader, and couple that with a flying back lead. I can pin everything down, but I'm not dragging my line down into the weed where it doesn't want to be dragged down into the weed. So what I'm trying to achieve is pinning my line down just in my baiting area. So I'm not alerting carp to any kind of danger with line cutting through the water, then brushing against line, etc. So again, I can just pin down what's beyond those weed beds and not drag my line into the weed. So hopefully the carp will come in, not be aware that they're being fished for, start feeding, and sooner or later pick up my hook bait, and away we go. Line concealment for me is a big factor in my fishing. Now there's many ways of concealing your line. Obviously leaders, various backleads, etc. Fluorocarbon is probably the best way of concealing your line, but to be fair, fluorocarbon doesn't suit everyone. It's not as user friendly as a standard mono. Now, lead core and unleaded style leaders can, on very clear lakes, stand out a little bit, but there is another option. You can use a fluorocarbon style leader. Now this is something I do myself and put into my fishing quite regularly. So 20 and 30 pound illusion, either one is absolutely ideal. And what I'll do with this is I'll tie on a short leader of about 4 to 5 feet. Now what I can also do is on the main line is I can put a little bead at the top behind the leader knot, and then I can add a flying back lead to that as well to pin it down even further. So what I'm going to do now is just run through with you what knot I use. It's a back-to-back grinner and it's very simple to tie, but it's a knot that I'm confident in and has never let me down. So I'm going to do that right now. Right, so what we're going to do to start is we're going to lay the two materials alongside each other like so. Now because of the heavier braking strain in your leader, you're not going to need to put so many turns and knots in this. So I'm going to go through, this is the 20 pound, so I'm going to go through it 3 times. Like so. And then what I'll do is just wet that up and slowly tighten that down. Then we turn it round, and then for our main line, I'm going to wrap that round the leader, and then I'm going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now depending on what line you're using and what braking strain, you may need to add another twist to be happy, or to suit your own style of line. Now you wet both parts up, pull them down slowly so they butt up against each other, and then what I do is I take the tag ends and the main line again and slowly tighten them up, and there you have a super strong leader knot that's not going to let you down. All you need to do now is trim off the tag ends, add obviously your lead arrangement, and you are ready to fish. Like I say, if you want to use a flying back lead with it, just make sure you put a little rubber bead on your main line beforehand. With the flying back leads you can attach them after, so you can take them on and off as need be, and then just cut the length you want. Like I say, I generally fish them about 4 to 5 feet, and there you go, you're ready to go. During the autumn months, my main go-to lead setup is a helicopter arrangement. There's quite a few reasons for this. Obviously into the autumn, the leaves are falling off the tree, the weeds dying back in the lake, so you're getting a lot of debris on the bottom. And the other thing I've learned from going out with Rob Hughes and seeing him dive is that what you often feel is very clear isn't always the case. For example, you can find what would appear to be very clear gravel, but on the top of that there's an inch or two of very fine silt. So with the helicopter setup, it's simply a case of, if you're not too sure, move the bead further up the leader. This way, if this dives into an inch or two of silt, the hook length will travel up on the cast anyway. As that then lays down and rests, wherever it finds itself on the silt, your hook length will settle. So it's always going to be fishing perfectly. The other thing with helicopter setups is obviously fish chods with a helicopter setup. And again, another great way, obviously fish a bead further up the line. But again, you know if you're on a bit of debris that rig is always fishing. Now they're not the easiest to tie up in the world, but fortunately they're already available ready tied these days. And another simple way of using them, if you are fishing with fluorocarbon main line, is literally a main line stop, tungsten bead, your hook length, and then I use one of our naked tail rubbers to take the pressure off the main line, and then you've got your lead and you're fishing. So a very effective way, especially if you're not 100% sure what you're fishing on. Again, this is my go-to setup. Certainly give it a go. In the autumn months, the carp are generally on the feed. They're trying to pack that weight on to see them through the winter months. So another tip would be, don't be afraid to feed them. There's the old cliche, you can't take out what you put in, but what you do put in, the carp will eat anyway. And if you put it in the right spots, you're more likely to have some big hits of fish. My go-to bait this time of year is boilies. My approach would be, again, you build your swim up, but I certainly wouldn't worry about putting a reasonable amount in to start. Now a reasonable amount is obviously dependent on the fish stocks, etc. that are in the lake. But don't be afraid to feed them, like I say. If they're there, they'll eat them, and it's amazing how many boilies carp can munch their way through in a short period of time. So chosen approach would be generally to bait with frozen baits. My preferred bait at the moment is hybrid. Now what I like to do with that is use that as my bulk feed, but I like to add in some salty squids or IBs, depending again on the venue I'm fishing. Both these baits have worked superbly well for me, and they also give me an option as a real nice standout hook bait amongst my free offerings. So that would be the way I would go this time of year. Think boilies and catch lots of big carp. So the hook baits I use during the autumn, I tend to stick to IBs and salty squids. And again, this is the reason I introduce these in as ready-mades as well. It gives the fish confidence when they come to my hook bait that it's safe to eat. What I do with these is I add in a little bit of hook bait enhancer, mix it up, give them a good shake, let that soak in, and I'll keep adding it again just to put that little bit more attraction to my hook bait. Hopefully they'll find it quicker and it will give me a bite quicker. So there you go, they're my chosen hook baits for this time of year. Fish location is always going to be one of the most important factors in carp fishing, and it carries on throughout the year, including the autumn. Now some of the things you're going to look for, their patterns are going to change, they'll start moving into different areas, etc. They'll always like cover at any time of the year, but what you'll generally find is they move out from the margins, they drop down in the layers, and they'll head off for that deeper water. Now one thing is, never be afraid if you see fish to either move onto them, or if they're within castable distance, cast to them. Again, going back to the helicopter setups that I spoke about and the chod rigs, again, this is why they come into their own, because you know, providing you're not casting into a dense weed bed, you can cast out onto that lake bed, and providing you fill a donk down, you're fishing. Keep your eyes as much as you can peeled on the lake, keep looking for those signs, whether it be fizzing, rolls, and if you do see fish show head and shoulder completely out of water, chances are they are feeding fish, because that's one thing they are doing this time of year. They're looking for food and they are feeding. They're not just on the move, finding their way elsewhere into the lake. So make sure if you see them, you record it. And another little point is that as you look and you see a fish show, first thing to do, get that picture in your head, line that up with something on the skyline, because you're not always going to have a rod wound in ready to cast to them. So get that in your head. Try and mentally remember where it is on the for distance, because you're never going to be able to get that bang on, but you can always get a good idea that it's halfway over to those trees, etc. But the main thing is you line that up so straight away you can get back to it. So say location is probably the most important thing, so just think when you're fishing and be prepared to move and be prepared to change if need be. Well, hopefully one of the two of those tips I've given you will help you get out there, put one or two fish like this on the bank. What an absolute beauty.
If you'd like to watch more videos from Fox Fishing TV, then click the link here. Or if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, then click the link here.